Magic's morning at Sineo Hearters. As you can see, we are here today in our game dedicated to Singapore. That's me right there, developing the main developer of the game, and that's Simon, the second main developer. As you can see, the sign over there says stand on the platform. Take the gadget and travel to the 2000. Once the cutscene is done, use the zoom tool. Right there, you can see there is a time machine. When I go to the 2000s. There's a new dialogue. It says, go through the door. So just wait. Now the cutscene is over. We'll head over to this door thingy, which will open up and show us the first question. Divine colonialism and imperialism. Over here you can see colonialism. It is the practice of acquiring and maintaining political, economic, and cultural control over another country or region. It typically involves settling in the territory, exploiting its resources, and asserting dominance over the indigenous populations. The goal of colonialism is often to benefit the colonizing power at the expense of the colonized territory. Now over here we have imperialism. Refers to the broader policy or ideology of extending a nation's influence and power through diplomacy, economic pressure, or military force, while colonialism often involves direct territorial control. Imperialism can include indirect methods of domination such as controlling trade, influencing political systems, or asserting cultural superiority over other nations or regions. Now that we're done with that, we head over to the next stage. As you can see, there are two billboards, one with an image and one with text. See the text first. Before colonization, Singapore was a small settlement under the Johor Sultanate rooted in Malay traditions and Islamic practices. Its people, including the Orang Laut, lived through fishing, farming, and trade. As a key stop on maritime routes, it blended influences from Chinese, Indian, and Middle Eastern traders, creating a simple yet diverse culture. Over here, you can see an image of Singapore before colonization. Now over here, let's move to the 1800s. Over here, the British Empire or the Western countries that colonized Singapore. Now here, Singapore was colonized by Britain in 1819. Mr. Stamford Raffles of the East India Company signed an agreement with Sultan Hussein of Johor and Temenggung. This allowed the British to establish a trading post, recognizing Singapore's strategic location along key trade routes, aiming to counter Dutch dominance. Britain developed Singapore into a major port and regional trade hub, solidifying its global importance. Now moving on to the next stage, as you can see, there's a mini city here with the description colonization era and the years after 1819. You can see there are some people over there in the trading boat and a port over here, of course, to signify Singapore's trading hubs or trading routes using the water or sea trade routes. There's some buildings here. Right there you see a glimpse of a photo. There's a tree, there's some houses. There's the photo with a bunch of boats and a bunch of buildings. I say over here. Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Now moving on to the next one. As you can see over here, Singapore pre-colonization era before 1819. Some people living off the coast, fishing. And over here is a river. Then within that river, you can see a civilization. In there, the civilization, you can see people, boats, houses. It's a civilization. It's a village. It's probably a village you think of before modern technology existed. Then now over here, you'll see a photo. Alright, there's the photo. You can see, I'd say it's pretty accurate to the model, the small city model. That's done. You can see those two billboards over there. Let's let's head over to the left one first. Colonization period. Right, let's wait for this cutscene to end. Now again, over there. After colonization in 1819, Singapore became a global trading hub, attracting immigrants from China, India, and Europe, creating a multicultural society. British influences introduced English, Western education, and new systems, blending with the local tradition to shape Singapore's unique cultural identity today. On to the next one. As you can see, pre-colonization. As always, we wait for the cutscene to end. Right now, as you can see over there, pre-colonization era. Before British colonization, Singapore was a small Malay settlement focused on fishing, farming, and trade, with a culture rooted in Islamic and local traditions. As we can see over here, there are some World War II Japanese soldiers, and this is really neat. It looks like they're time traveling. They're invading what looks and is Singapore. They're invading Singapore in their conquest of World War II. Okay, let's wait for the cutscene to end. Close-up shot. Alright. Now we're in this room over here with how, when. Now, Japan colonized Singapore from 1942 to 1945 during World War II by swiftly defeating the British forces. The Japanese, led by General Yamashita, used fast-moving tactics and took advantage of weak defenses, particularly through the land road of Malaya or Malaysia. Singapore fell on February 15, 1942 and was renamed to Sionon-tung or Light of the South. The Japanese imposed strict military rule until the surrender in 1945. Now moving on, you can see the Japanese soldier sadly ending a British soldier's life. Now moving on, over here is a map of Asia. Now, how did Japanese colonization affect or change the country's culture and society? Japanese colonization in Singapore, 1942 to 1945, imposed harsh military rule and sought to replace Western influences with Japanese culture. The Japanese promoted their language and values while using propaganda, and many Singaporeans faced forced labor and mistreatment. Despite the brutality, the experience fostered unity among Singaporeans, paving the way for post-war nationalist monuments or movements. Now over here is basically comparing and contrasting Japanese colonization with Western colonization. Over here is basically just the Japanese colonization like earlier. Now moving on, we have the British colonization. The British focused on trade and governance, turning Singapore into a global trading hub. They introduced English as a key language, Western education, legal systems, and infrastructure, creating a multicultural society and fostering economic growth. Life under British rule was generally stable, though the colonial system prioritized British interests and left local populations with limited political power. Moving on to the next stage, this is Singapore's nature-friendly energy sources. First up here, we have solar energy. Singapore uses its sunny weather to install solar panels on rooftops, open spaces, and even on water, like floating solar farms at the Tengge Reservoir. Now, here, waste to energy. Singapore turns trash into electricity using special plants which help reduce waste and produce energy. Moving on over here, we have solar energy again. Solar energy is important to Singapore because it is one of the few renewable energy sources the country can use. Since Singapore has no space for large wind farms or hydroelectric dams, it relies on its sunny weather to produce clean energy. Solar energy helps reduce dependence on imported fossil fuels, cuts carbon emissions, and supports Singapore's goal of becoming more sustainable. Now over here we have waste to energy. Waste to energy is vital because Singapore is a small country with limited space for landfills. By turning trash into electricity, the country manages waste efficiently while generating energy at the same time. This helps keep the environment clean and reduces the need for fossil fuels, contributing to both energy and sustainability. Now over here, solar energy. Solar energy reduces carbon emissions. Solar energy generates electricity without burning fossil fuels, cutting greenhouse gas emissions. Clean energy source reduces no air or water pollution during operation. Finally, it preserves natural resources. Using sunlight reduces the need to extract and burn finite resources or fossil fuels like coal and oil. Now finally over here, we have waste to energy again. It reduces landfill waste, converting trash into energy, minimizes the amount of waste sent into landfills, saving space and preventing harmful methane emissions from decomposing garbage. Cuts pollution. Properly managed waste to energy plants reduce air and water pollution compared to untreated waste disposals. Now lastly, it supports circular economy. It turns waste into a resource, promoting sustainability and reducing the need for additional energy from non-renewable resources or fossil fuels. Now, again, this is Zian Leung reporting from Singapore Group, again in my group. Thank you for listening. This was all about Singapore, its history, its colonization, and its modern society. Thank you for listening.